Welcome to our San Diego Comic-Con 2015 prep video. We are here in beautiful downtown San Diego at the Gaslamp, obviously right behind us, the convention center here. As we're recording this, we are a few weeks out, actually about 5 weeks out as we're recording this, so some things will be changing as we go along. This video we're going to focus though on a lot of the basic tips to help give you a really enjoyable time at San Diego Comic-Con. It's obviously a trying convention. There's nothing like it in the world. I mean, the amount of focus that comes into these few weeks here, all in San Diego, all the fun, all the enjoyment, but also all the stress. Those are all things that we're going to hit on this video. We're going to spend the bulk of our time on the outside of the convention center, talking about some things to highlight there, some tips regarding food, relaxation, sleep, all other types of things to make sure that you're in good shape for the video. We've gone back to the archives, looking at what we did in 2013, 2014, finding things there, tweaking them. Want to make sure to put together a video here in this third year that we're doing this, that hopefully is the best one yet in terms of giving you the content to make sure you have a good trip out here. So we're going to go ahead and take a little bit of a look around. Before we do that though, just off the top, SDCC blog is the place to go with all sorts of information as we lead up. So you can go sdccblog.com. Tons of stuff there every day, multiple articles related to all of the latest happenings with Comic-Con. In addition to that, heading over to Outside Comic-Con. Outside Comic-Con has tons of stuff, obviously everything related to the outside of the Comic-Con. The way that the convention takes over this entire Gaslamp district, I mean, there's over 100 off-site activities to be expected this year. They're going to be everywhere. Definitely check that out. And then also over at our site, parksandcons.com, we will have an interactive, or I should say a visual guide again throughout the Gaslamp of a lot of the off-site activities and on-site activities as well in terms of where to line up for exclusives, fulfillment room, all that. So a lot of things we'll touch on today. We'll have video actually to go along with that. So let's go ahead and take a little look around. All right, we're butted up here against one of our favorite off-site areas that we always like to point out in these videos because the thing just gets overlooked a little bit in the grand scheme of all that's going on because of its location. But this is normally the Petco Interactive Zone, or at least the last couple years, that's what it's been called. So last year, some really fun Sleepy Hollow Oculus Rift experience. Cartoon Network always does a bunch of things over here. Leftovers had a cool setup. This entire thing kind of becomes its own little free mini-con. If you're coming out to San Diego Comic-Con and you don't have tickets for all of the days of the convention, definitely a spot that we'd recommend. One thing to note, it does get pretty crowded though, but what's interesting is it seems to get crowded with a lot of non-Comic-Con folks. I mean, we notice a lot of people there without badges, which always kind of, as we get feedback after the convention, leads us to believe that a lot of people that watched videos like this, the harder core attendees, don't actually always make their way over here. But we do suggest that some fun stuff there, always unique experiences, and again, all free, don't even need your badge for that. Also beyond there, back there, we've got the Mission Brewery. Just a quick note, we have our, the unofficial San Diego Comic-Con blog is going to be having our party there to kick off Comic-Con on Wednesday preview night. So either you have tickets or you don't have tickets. If you don't, they're already sold out. But if you do, kind of off there in the background beyond this way, this would probably be your number one way to go there. You might want to take a pedicab or something like that, be an easier access. And then over here, obviously, we have Petco. Petco always has some of the greatest signs along the outside, advertising whatever's coming up new in TV, movies, things like that. But also this year, tying into the zombie zeitgeist, there's going to be Walker Stalker Fan Fest, which is kind of a fun little convention going alongside right near the big convention, obviously, of San Diego Comic-Con. So again, if you don't have a ticket for a day or you're just a zombie fan, that might be a really good place to go check out some zombie action, just some convention fun. Especially if you're a Walking Dead fan, much better place to probably see some of those people that you're interested in than inside the convention center itself. So San Diego Comic-Con is all about choices, and the best place to start with really talking about those choices as we talk about the line itself to enter Comic-Con each day. So we're out here outside of Hall H alongside the convention center here at the Hilton, kind of shooting down. Let's talk about Hall H line first off. So we know the ominous Hall H line, it's always crazy except for those days that it's not crazy when we don't know what's going to be in there. You know, last year we saw Interstellar in there with no wait at all, just walked in on a Thursday. Book of Life, saw Channing Tatum up there dancing, things like that. So there are those downtimes which are nice, so always keep an eye on that in terms of the calendar, looking for those things on social media or in advance where it might be downtimes. But generally speaking, Hall H is going to require a big wait, and you got to decide what you need to do there. Now, they introduced a new wristband system last year. As of this recording, we do not know exactly the system that CCI will be using this year, so obviously stay tuned to the sdccblog.com for more information on that as we progress. But let's just talk generally about that. So in terms of making the commitment of the line, there will be the tents out here. If you've ever seen pictures of Comic-Con before, you know that the tents strewn out all here. You have people easily waiting overnight, but some waiting much longer than that, camping out, making their own lines, things like that. Either way, it really comes down to, again, having a team of people keeping an eye on things and using social media to look for updates. The time commitment is up to you. For us, Hall H is not going to be worth it, whatever, a 15-hour wait, a 24-hour wait, whatever it is. But for you, it might very well be. And so follow along with that. Watch closely. One thing to think about when it does come to Hall H, though, or as we move into looking at the next part, the rest of the convention, is a lot of times thinking, are there other places that you can see any of these people as well? So with this year being D23 Expo for Southern California people, you might be able to see some things there and dedicate some time in that arena. Let's talk about the everything else line. So everything else, this is like the most common question we get is, so I want to get in there for Ballroom 20. I want to get in there for exclusives. I want to get in there for swag, whatever it might be. The everything else line, as it's called, also starts off here near the Hall H line, so you have to make sure to distinguish between the two and know which line is which, and so definitely look into that ahead of time, or even more so in the morning as you're talking to volunteers, find a line. It's usually not too hard to find line. The everything else line last year on Thursday and Friday, to give some perspective, at 6:45 a.m. on Thursday and Friday was strewn multiple times, zigzagging back behind the convention center all the way, and then going down the marina out to basically the island tip out there. So it gets nuts, it gets crazy. We'll talk more about exclusive strategy, specifically Hasbro, things like that in later videos. But the one thing for sure is make sure that if there's something that you're really hunting in that everything else line, that you're there early. All right, so around 6 a.m. though, they will start letting people gradually into the convention center. Now at that point, people will splinter off into all the directions that they want to go. So don't get too freaked out by the craziness of the line. I mean, it is intimidating, but you have to remember 4,000 of those people are probably going to Ballroom 20. However many thousand are going to Hasbro, to Lego, to, you know, and so on and so forth, just to the exhibit hall. So as you go in over here, you'll go up the escalators all the way along, you'll be guided. And then once you get to that second floor of the convention center, that's when you have to make some decisions. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a couple minutes when we get to talking about Sales Pavilion. All right, before we get over to the Sales Pavilion and talk a little bit about just the outside of the convention center, wanted to stop by here in the Hilton and talk about some things here. So this is just kind of an interesting spot here. We've got a charging station here. I mean, you'll be at Comic-Con with an external battery, I would hope. I think if you're watching this video, you'll have external batteries. But it's interesting, just kind of denote something, which is this is a great hotel just to rest. Obviously it's dead in there now. It won't be this dead during Comic-Con, but the Indigo Hall, you know, it's never quite as busy as the rest of the convention center. And just as a general rule, everything this side of the Gaslamp we find during that week is much, much less crowded. Not to mention the amount of time it takes to wait for the signals, for the trolleys, the trains to cross, everything else. It gets to be a really long wait to go into the Gaslamp. Yet, that's kind of everybody's just first instinct is to push out across the street. Our suggestion is, unless there's somewhere specific you're going, obviously your hotel down at the Hard Rock or whatever, specific place you want to eat, whenever you're taking those breaks where you just want to get some air away from the convention center, I would definitely go this general direction. And we'll talk about it more as we go outside, but we find that this hotel in general has a lot of open seats throughout the convention. Great places to eat as well. Vela downstairs is one of our favorite places to eat to kind of break away from the convention center. A lot of good food there. A little bit pricier than maybe some places, but not as pricey as a lot in the Gaslamp, and definitely worth the kind of break away from everything to just kind of get some fresh air, have a little bit of fun. They've got the Comic-Con theme going throughout. Lots of stars hanging out in this hotel, and it just ends up being a good break. We'll talk about the Marriott on the other side and the Manchester Grand Hyatt and all of that. Those also work pretty well. Again, everything's busy during San Diego Comic-Con, but there are places that are a little less busy, and definitely this side of the Gaslamp is fitting for that. All right, so we're here at the back side of the Hilton Bay front. Obviously, the lovely water out here. It's always a nice kind of break away from the convention center, as we talked about. Just this side away from the Gaslamp, there's just a lot more room, a lot more space, and a lot more, you know, fun aesthetics out here. We talked about Vela right over here, and so good restaurant. Again, this is kind of your view. It's worth the extra couple bucks over the convention center food to eat there for sure, and definitely much quicker to get in, better service all the way around. We have a lot of good experience there. We usually eat there about twice during Comic-Con, always get seated right away. Good quality food, and again, not too pricey. Probably about 40, 45 bucks for a couple. So, you know, not quite as cheap as running to something like Subway, obviously, but if you're talking about a sit-down situation where you're having service and all that, pretty good around there. So, Looking down a little bit over there, though, I want to talk a little bit about this grassy area there. That was the area over the last few years. It used to be kind of an escape zone from the crowds at Comic-Con. It's really been taken over by the studios over the last few years. Gotham Zipline last year, Fox with Simpsons all over the place. One thing I want to point out, though, all the way back there, even all the way back by the sales pavilion, all the way back there, Godzilla had a really cool off-site setup last year with a huge statue, an interactive zone, things like that. Another thing about the sales pavilion, that's where you're going to go if you're hunting for those exclusives, swag, access to the floor. So once you go inside the convention center, they're going to shoot you up over there. One thing to note, though, people oftentimes will try to get in the back way. That is illegal. I mean, unless something changes this year, CCI locks that down. Now, that's not to be say that we haven't seen people sneak their way through there, and you know, we have 100,000 people at the convention. People are going to get in places they're not supposed to get into, but don't waste your time. Sometimes people make the mistake with the Marriott or from the Hilton of going all the way that way, thinking they're just going to shoot up the stairs to get in line at 7 a.m. or something like that. You've got to go all the way around here to the front of the convention center, over by Hall H, and enter there, and then you splinter off into your different groups. So don't make the mistake. I wouldn't roll the dice. I think it's a very small percentage of people that sneak their way into that back sales pavilion. Just go ahead, get in line like everybody else, enter through the Hall H area, and then you can splinter off into the area that you need to go. All right, real quick, wanted to talk about a couple things related to registration, preview night, and things like that. So first off, registration moves super fast. CCI does an amazing job. Their volunteers really hardworking, really fast, really efficient, great system, moves super fast. So even though you might be afraid of the lines, we've had really good experiences, whether it be from regular registration, press, all of the above. But one thing to note there, usually registration opens about an hour or even more before they actually state it, which is a really cool thing that they do. I think it's, you know, at worst case scenario, they open at this published time, but often they're ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, and they've already got people in and out long before the published time. The other thing regarding preview night, you'll see people lining up really early. In our experience, really, if you're trying to do anything on the preview night floor, of really having a decent chance of getting some stuff, you probably should be in line by like 3 at the latest. And I know that sounds really early to some people, and there's so many fun things going on in the Gaslamp that you want to see. It's for ourselves. It's a tough decision. But 4, you know, used to be good enough. It just really isn't good enough anymore, so something to plan there. Last thing to note, just kind of looking at the convention center like this, is as you splinter off when you're coming in the mornings, let's say it's Thursday morning, Friday morning, whatever, you separate out. You're not going to Hall H, you're going to Ballroom 20, you're going whatever. If you're going to go to the floor, you're going to go straight up the escalator in there, and then you're going to have this choice. You can go right to line up in the sales pavilion, you can go straight and then kind of off to the left for Ballroom 20. But also what that will take you to is kind of the Hall G entrance to the floor. Hall G entrance used to be like the way to go, like the #1 thing to do. In the past few years, we're seeing it even out more and more, so I'm not sure that I feel so strongly anymore that Hall G is like the must way. The problem with Hall G is you're further geographically from the main center of the floor. So if you're going for Hasbro, Lego, Marvel, things like that, you're the furthest away, but usually it is a little bit less known of an area, and consequently, you know, sometimes a better way to go for that regard. Really, it's a big decision to be made. You might want to go one way one day, one way the other day. We've had success both ways. We usually prefer G. We get on the floor, we use our feet to try and outpace everybody, obviously walking safely to get to the, you know, whatever it is, the Hasbro, the obviously Funko is more on that side normally too. The other thing though is all of this is kind of up in the air until the exhibit hall floor map goes out, and so we'll be seeing that in the next few weeks here as you're watching this. So once we have that, we'll talk more about that in some of our planning, and we'll talk very specifically about that when we look at the convention center floor in one of our upcoming visual guides. All right, quickly want to talk about the Marriott and the Manchester Hyatt here. So first off, right behind you can see there's a lot of construction going on at the Marriott. This will not be finished for San Diego Comic-Con 2015, so plan accordingly. The traditional pickup room for Maddie, for Mattel, for the voucher system, the Torrey Pines room, normally you pick up there and then you kind of exit outside the back of that. That's not going to be the case this year because that's all closed off for construction zone. So not sure as we are recording this if Mattel is changing the procedures or changing their room location or any of that. So we're not sure. We'll have more with that as we get closer to the con. But for now, just something in terms of planning. Marriott construction zone might impact things. Next up, the Manchester Grand Hyatt down here, fulfillment room there. One thing just on the fulfillment room, definitely keep an eye out on the ground for tickets. We found lots of them over the last few years, usually somewhere between, I'd say, 4 to 7 or 8 different things that we're able to pick up of just extra bonuses. Last year I think we got Game of Thrones, Big Hero 6, a couple of things, and it's always kind of a fun hunt because you find these tickets throughout the convention. Center or in the Gaslamp especially. I think as people pay, maybe they drop out of their wallet or whatever, we pick them up and then we go down there and then we're looking and matching up. Okay, red goes here, the little schoolhouse is here. You never know what you're going to get, but it's fun extra swag to pick up Sunday afternoon. All right, we're making our way a little bit in from the convention center here to First and Market, the Ralph's behind us. We always kind of hesitate even throwing this in the video just because it seems like it's such a well-known Comic-Con fact that Ralph's is a great place to pick things up at a cheaper price, but figure we should throw it in there if we're going to try and be comprehensive. So again, First and Market, in general, as you move away from the convention center into the Gaslamp, there are different places. There's kind of like this hot spot in between the convention center, and then we're going to take you to a spot where it's like the most crowded, the most packed, and also the most expensive, and then it gets a little bit better after that. But Ralph's is kind of an exception to that. Just a couple blocks from the convention center, obviously grocery store prices there. There's also a few 7-Elevens not as good as Ralph's that are around the corner. If you're staying, for example, the Hard Rock a little bit closer to you over there, but still far better prices than obviously convention center prices. All right, so one thing when talking about the Gaslamp, we really promote the idea of going past 5th and Island. You know, 5th and Island seems to be kind of this line of demarcation. Not to say that it's all chill and relaxed and cheaper and no crowds, but we find that there's definitely a line of distinction there where things calm down a little bit, get seated a lot quicker, and the prices drop a little bit. So definitely check that out. Also behind us, we've got the Reading Cinema, another place to keep an eye on. Usually there's some sort of screenings there during Comic-Con, something to catch your eye. The Ghirardelli's right around the corner. There's several ATMs this way. Just a lot of things. If you kind of push past that main hotspot of the first couple blocks of the Gaslamp, you find some good hidden gems up there. All right, we're wrapping up this prep video. More videos to come, but we're wrapping up this one here next to the Hilton Gaslamp here in this grass area. I think just because it hits on kind of the unconventional, looking back at 2014 for us. Comic-Con is so much about what you don't expect to happen. And so as we were filming our prep videos last year, you know, you're planning, you're putting in all these things. Things happen. We ended up in the Hasbro line Wednesday night. Never thought that would happen. It wasn't part of our plan. It wasn't any of our advice. It happened. We were taking care of. Happened. Right here, got a shave from the Assassin's Creed people. You know, like sitting there with the towel and the warm. You know, and there's just so many random crazy things that happen at Comic-Con that you don't even plan. So coming into it, it's really important to have your expectations measured. You know, have that one thing each day that's super important, but be ready to kind of, you know, deviate. Have a plan A, B, C, and D, to be honest. And we'll talk about more of that as we get to specifically videos related to the convention floor, Hasbro exclusives, Lego, whatever. But in general, having that. The other thing is, you know, prepping as well as you can. You know, we always bring extra bags, extra poster tubes. If you're driving, that's something you could do. If you're flying, probably not. But you can just trade them out in your room. Ways to kind of accommodate the time a little bit, but being able to be change direction as the convention goes on, because there are going to be opportunities that arise that you're never going to expect, and that's what makes it so fun. Lastly, and just kind of wrapping up with this kind of general San Diego Comic-Con prep, is just make sure to enjoy it. You know, I can't tell you how many people we find and run across their days are just angry, upset, lacking sleep, food, whatever it might be, that just, you know, it's such a cool experience. You fight so hard to get tickets, parking, hotel, everything to get here, all the money. We just believe you can't spend a minute of it not having an amazing time. You know, so if you find yourself getting short on patience, you know, look at, have you been eating, sleeping, whatever, step away from it. Really big on not getting sick. And for us, it's really important Sunday at 7 o'clock to wish that there was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday still coming up of the con, not to be broken down, not to be dead and running away. So we'll wrap up here. Watch for more videos from us coming up in the near future here to prep for your San Diego Comic-Con 2015. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.